At the porch of the house at 2416 waited Janet and Paul Olson and their 2 daughters. Just a typical Portland family. That's why they were chosen to put the president up for the night. But it's going to be difficult to maintain that description after last night. The president excused the excitement which attended his arrival. "I hope I didn't disturb your home," he said. Inside the house, the president posed for pictures with the family. Then reporters left. But what happened after that? Well, to find out, we went to a next-door neighbor who, like any interested neighbor, couldn't help but take a peek through his windows.
After the news people left, took his shoes off, took his jacket off, sat down, put his feet up, played with the kids, went through the coloring books, had a glass of wine, 2 pieces of cheesecake, talked. Mike, the boarder upstairs, came down, dominated the conversation for a quick 10 minutes, went back upstairs. Sat around a little longer. The president was the first to go to bed. The Olsons stayed up to watch the goings-on on TV.
Some say the event in the neighborhood has been a little like Christmas. It's a great time to enjoy. Fortunately, it comes just once a year. Tim Storrs, Eyewitness News at the Olson Home in northeast Portland.
President Carter not only appeared well-rested when he left the Olson house this morning, he seemed to possess the energy of a politician running for re-election. And while the national polls may show his popularity dipping to an all-time low, his spirits were high as he greeted neighbors. He left the Olson home shortly after 8 o'clock and immediately walked toward the crowd for 15 minutes of old-fashioned handshaking and casual conversation.
Very good. Thank you. I had to get up this morning to do some studying, but I enjoyed it very much. Today, I say what I'm going to do today.
Also waiting to greet the president, a small group of demonstrators, most of them carrying signs opposing nuclear power. And with Secret Service agents close at hand, the president spoke briefly to the demonstrators before moving on through the crowd. White House observers say this is the largest group of protesters Carter has encountered outside of Washington, but at that, the group was rather small. And the president said he was very pleased with the reception he received here in Portland. Also pleased, his host for the evening, the now famous Olson family. Paul Olson said he spoke with the president for about 45 minutes last evening, but the conversation was not political. In fact, the president spent a few minutes reading a bedtime story to the Olson children.
He read them a story and helped put them to bed, and they just relaxed right away. They were very excited when they saw the motorcade come up, and I think Aaron's eyes were as big as microphones, and they settled down immediately, and Aaron just quieted down, was relaxing on the carpet in front of President Carter, and Christian was sitting next to him coloring, and they were just as calm and comfortable as can be.
From the Olson house, President Carter went downtown to the Benson Hotel for a meeting with officials from 4 western states.
The president fielded questions ranging from what is being done to dispose of nuclear power plant waste to the strategic arms limitation talks with Russia. But in President Carter's view, perhaps the most important thing he said here this evening had to do with civil service reform legislation.
That at least was the tack he took in a statement prior to accepting questions.
It's virtually impossible now to discipline those federal employees who fail to perform. This is an issue of efficiency and good management, but it goes beyond that. It's also an issue of the performance and the vigor, the very life of our democratic system. I think the American people in the West and all across the country are going to be watching how the Congress handles this very difficult but very important assignment to reform the bureaucracy of our government, the keystone of which is to make the civil service work better.
In response to questions, Mr. Carter said he would not impose nuclear storage on any state which did not want the waste, that anti-nuclear groups should obey the law and not resort to civil disobedience, that his recently announced plan to increase timber harvests in national forests in the Northwest would be a modest boost, that he would not impose wage and price controls in efforts to halt inflation, that he is not about to send U.S. troops to Angola, and that he thinks he's doing a good job despite a poll that indicates most of the American public thinks he is not doing a good job.
I feel very sure that almost all of the attempts that we have made are in the best interest of the American people. And I believe that as they are understood, that the present low rating in the polls will be improving. So I am hopeful that that my popularity in the polls will go up. I think any politician would feel the same, but I'm satisfied with the administration's progress so far. I've also found a very good reception on this trip to the West, better, I might say, than the last time I was out here.
Following the news conference, President Carter went upstairs to the pavilion room for a reception.
Remnants of President Carter's visit to the Olsons are still everywhere, mainly in the form of reporters and Secret Service people who ducked in and out of their Northeast Portland home all morning. Paul and Jan Olson are becoming old hands at this, now as comfortable in front of the cameras as they were when Jimmy Carter took his jacket and shoes off to take it easy in their front room at the end of a long day.
It went just as we had hoped. It was relaxing. It was a chance to meet a very interesting and important individual on a very human level, and we were very pleased with the visible relaxation of the president, his enjoyment of our family, his enjoyment of my wife. Janet, I'm sure you've got some first impressions.
Well, I guess it was a lot easier. I wasn't really all that nervous all week, but I kept thinking as it got closer, I'd get more and more nervous. And the only time I really felt nervous was when they said, "You've got 10 seconds." And I was so thrilled when I saw him driving up the street. I just wanted to cry. But I wasn't really that nervous.
Yes, a few geraniums in the front yard were trampled and the lawns of the neighbors well trodden by reporters and onlookers. There are still some barricades sitting around the sidewalk, barricades that kept anti-nuclear demonstrators at a distance during their overnight candlelight vigil outside the house. The Olsons say their chanting didn't seem to disturb the president's sleep, that he woke early, showered, and spent some time reading before they took him around and introduced him to their neighbors. They were allowed to use the Watts line the phone company installed to call all their relatives in Iowa who couldn't be in Portland for the big day. The talk was mostly family talk with the president. The Olsons say they didn't want to press Carter on too many issues. They feel they know him now, that his advanced people gave them an honest appraisal of just how the visit would go. But that didn't make it any less exciting.
Well, we tried to get some sleep. Last night was the first night I really haven't slept very well. It wasn't a restless kind of sleep. I was just excited and kept waking up thinking about the experience, and I guess that was the worst night's sleep I had, but it was worth it.
Tell the whole thing over again?
Oh, you bet.
Yes.
Most definitely.
Chris Thomas, Eyewitness News.